where day after day, week after week, I conduct my virtual encounters and minister to people all over the world. But I want to welcome you in my office today to do a very special podcast. And this is a live podcast about what I'm calling the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the church. What is it that we need to know that we don't already know? Because this has been one of the most massively media-covered events in modern history. The only thing that I have experienced that compares to it is the tragic assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and the day that President Kennedy was assassinated. But those were very different times. And today we live in a social media-driven culture. But what I want to talk about is, in all the conversation surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk, something very crucial has been missed. And surprisingly, it isn't the news media that's overlooked this. The media does what it always does. It analyzes politics and it urges more civility in Washington. And we hear that over and over and over again. But America's deeper struggle is not being fought in Congress. It's being fought on a spiritual battlefield. And on this battlefield, there is no compromise. There is no truce. There is no surrender. When the enemy is Satan and his demons, we must not retreat. We have no choice but to press forward, always resisting the devil until, as the Word of God tells us in James 5, he has fled from us. This is the mission that God has given our ministry. And as you know, if you followed this ministry for years, we do not work quietly in the shadows, but we stand on the front lines, calling evil by its name and confronting it with the power of Jesus Christ. Now, that raises a very interesting question of what I want to ask you. I hope you were in church last Sunday, and if you were, what happened? Did your pastor refer to the assassination of Charlie Kirk? Did he speak of the spiritual ramifications of it? Did he call the congregation to prayer? Did he call for spiritual warfare against the forces of darkness that are tragically at work in our nation? If he didn't, listen carefully to what I have to say. Many Christians that I've spoken with since last Sunday were deeply, deeply disappointed by the silence of their church and the silence of their pastor. I had one young couple say to me, waited for our pastor to take a bold stand and to speak hope to America, to address Charlie Kirk's family, and to address his organization and the nation. But he said nothing, not even a passing remark. We won't be going back to that church. Wow. That's a tough call. That's a very difficult decision. And frankly, I applaud their courage. I'm not asking for people to leave the church over one Sunday or one sermon, but this is a watershed moment. There's never been anything quite like this in America. So tragic and yet so opportunistic for the gospel of Christ and the influence of the Christian community. We simply have had enough. That's the stand we need to take. We are not any longer going to excuse silence in the pulpit about demons, the devil, and spiritual warfare. Are you with me? A pastor doesn't have to necessarily dedicate an entire sermon to current events. I'm not saying that every pastor had to spend all of last Sunday morning talking about this, but to ignore this assassination that has shaken America, to me, it's absolutely inexcusable. This is a time when people are shaken. They are searching for hope. And the church must rise up because the church of Jesus Christ is the one place where we find eternal hope. And frankly, that's why within 24 hours of this tragedy, I was right here online calling the nation to prayer and declaring that Charlie Kirk was a martyr. a martyr for the cause of Christ. Let me tell you what's missing in our national conversation. And I'm a news junkie, and I watch the cable channels and et cetera, and I look at news sites of all kinds, and I'm listening to the conversation that's going on out there. But it's missing something. Obviously, the secular media is missing it, but tragically, in many churches, it's missing. The recognition of spiritual warfare that is raging behind the headlines, behind the fast-breaking news. Politicians and commentators, all right, we can excuse them for neglecting this spiritual reality about demons and the devil. But pastors, are we going to let them off the hook? Are we going to give them a pass on this? I say we've been giving pastors as spiritual leaders in churches in America a pass for too long. The time for that kind of compromise is over. We cannot look the other way and say, well, you know, God didn't call you to do deliverance. God didn't call you to spiritual warfare. Every Christian is called to spiritual warfare, and many are called to deliverance, but all are called to the Great Commission, of which deliverance is a part. Now, if you have followed these unfolding reports, you know the disturbing details about the assassination and the assassin and his lifestyle. And this goes way beyond the trans issue. Now, I've got to be very careful about what I say here. First of all, I don't want to give utterance of the things that are spoken of in darkness that we don't even need to think about and talk about. However, the corruption and the perversion tied to this assassination stretches the imagination beyond what Sodom and Gomorrah could have conceived of. And I have to choose my words wisely. I don't want to get banned from social media for what this assassin, if I talk about what he was involved in, what he was indulging in. If you know the latest news, this is what it's really all about now. The vulgar evidence of the kinky things that Tyler Robinson embraced. This wasn't just about writing fascist on a bullet. It was deeper than that. It was more vile than that. It encompassed all types of things that I do not want to speak about. I don't even want to talk about it, but I will tell you, this isn't the general press that's talking about this. This isn't even the deep state type conspiracy stuff. This is the real deal. This is credible media that has now uncovered what this guy, Tyler Robinson, the assassin, was doing and what really drove him, the demons that he was getting that pushed him to do this. Yes, there was a political overlay to it, but it was so much more than that. And all the stuff that the assassin embraced, he boasted about it. He posted it. I wonder this coming Sunday, now that we know so much more about the assassin, and now we know the depths of his depravity on a personal level outside of any ideological construct that he had in regards to what he did. Well, pastors this Sunday have the courage to speak about his evil. Maybe they don't have to go into the specifics. Of course not. I'm not going into the specifics. But it's out there if you want to find out about it. And again, I say it's from credible news sources. This is not the stuff that people are making up and attaching to it. This is real. Our pastors this coming Sunday going to speak about the spiritual war that is raging in our nation. Well, I know where I'm going to be this coming Sunday morning with Laura, with our family, attending Charlie Kirk's memorial right here in Phoenix, Arizona. But then on Monday morning, I'm going to be right here returning to the front lines, Bible and cross in hand, ministering frontline freedom through Jesus Christ, through those who are oppressed by real demons in real time. Now, I know this is my specific calling, but others have a calling too. And they're pursuing that calling through Bob Larson University and through our Do What Jesus Did teams. And I'm not saying that every pastor in America has to do this to the extent that I'm doing it. I wish that many more would, but I'm just saying, hasn't this gotten your attention, pastor, Christian leader, deacon board, elders? Wake up. This is a moment that can change the direction of our country and change the church, not just in the United States of America, but on a global basis. But if this is my calling, I will not abandon it, and I will not be silent. Now, I know my words are strong, and maybe for some of you even harsh. But this assassination of Charlie Kirk has stripped away the pretense. The spiritual gloves are off. If the church in America fails to see what this battle is truly all about, we're in real trouble. We're in grave danger. And not just from politics or the shifting cultural ethics of our time, but from the devil himself. This is not a battle about the left or the right. It's about spiritual warfare against the powers of darkness, front and center against our real enemy, who is Satan. And that spiritual warfare battle is here now. The enemy is real. Together, in the name of Christ, we must not retreat. Now, I want to say that if your pastor this Sunday speaks to this issue, encourage him, shake his hand, bless him, support him. And I'm asking for your support. I'm asking for your help, because we must press forward in this fight of frontline spiritual warfare. Support your pastor. Support the work of Charlie Kirk. And go right down to boblarson.org. Or text the word give to 833-361-4711. That's 833-361-4711. Or just go to boblarson.org and find out all the ways you can be involved in making a difference. As we join together, as part of a mighty army of God, we must declare to all the forces of darkness, the political insanity, the moral disquietude, this age in which the powers of darkness are now full front, out in our face. We must declare that together we will be a mighty army of God fighting spiritual warfare, joining together, declaring that the crucified and risen Christ and his power has been given to us, that we have all power over the forces of darkness to set them running the other way, instead of swarming every institution of American culture. Thank you for watching. Thank you for praying. Do pray for your pastor, that he'll do the right thing this Sunday. And if he doesn't, don't be afraid to tell him, nicely, kindly. He really maybe doesn't understand what spiritual warfare is and didn't learn it in seminary and doesn't comprehend the nature of this battle. Speak kind words of encouragement that he look into this just a little deeper. And thank you for your support, and thank you for your prayers as we help to lead this battle all over the world every day, with our scores and scores of Do What Jesus Did teams, with the thousands of people that we've raised up through Bob Larson University by God's grace, teaching and training them in real serious warfare. And thank you for each of you for what you're doing to stand up for the cause of Christ, to stand up for America, to stand up for goodness and decency, and that justice will be done, and the cause of Christ will go forward with more power than ever before, fighting the real war of spiritual warfare. God bless you. Keep watching that email for my next special podcast.